I didn't think it would happen to me. Here's the first truth we have to lock in. Online dating in Asia and the Philippines does not fail at the obvious points. It fails at the reasonable ones. The moment you think this seems normal, that's usually where leverage starts leaking. Most men think failure looks dramatic. Big lies, huge money requests, clear scams. Those are the easy ones. The men who end up emotionally drained or financially exposed usually say something very different. She never asked for much. She seemed grateful. She didn't pressure me. And that's exactly why it worked. Because the real danger online isn't manipulation, it's momentum. Dating apps reward momentum, fast replies, quick emotional bonding, early seriousness. And your brain, especially after divorce or long solitude, mistakes speed for sincerity. You think she's attentive, she must be invested. But attention online costs almost nothing. What costs something is consistency under restraint. And that's what most men never test. Here's the second truth. Online dating removes friction. There's no inconvenience, no missed appointments, no awkward silences, no pressure from real life. Everything is curated. I mean, I have a 100-page guide that I'll share with you for free called How to Win Online. It has 100 conversation starters, the color of personality, love languages, the 29 emotions that eHarmony guy who wrote the book. It's all curated. I can give you a book and you can use it. Just write to me, get the free book, A Western Man's Guide to Dating Online in Asia and the Philippines, and ask also for How to Win Online. I want those 100 questions, including Dr. Annan's 36. Online can be very curated. I can give you the material for your end to be curated as well, because there's no friction when it's curated. Your imagination fills in the gaps. You don't fall for her, you fall for the version of her your brain quietly competes. That's not weakness, it's human. Age gap relationships accelerate this effect. Youth triggers hope, memory. You're meeting a future you wish you had earlier, and that's why smart men move too fast. Not because they're desperate, because they're relieved. Relieved to feel wanted again, relieved to feel relevant, relieved to feel chosen. Now let me say something clearly. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. The mistake is letting that relief drive your pacing. Because pacing is the single most important skill online. Not charm, not generosity, not even experience. Pacing. Men who succeed online here don't rush clarity. They let time do the vetting. And we talked about that in the first video. Men who struggle try to remove uncertainty too early. They explain themselves, they reassure, they commit verbally, they offer help, they send money. All good qualities. But offered too soon, they collapse attraction and distort incentives. The signal and the noise problem. When you do that, you make the signal go away and all you get back is the noise, because you created the environment for static noise. The purity of the signal that you're supposed to read from her, the vetting, it goes away. This is where most men misunderstand the game. They think seriousness creates safety. Online seriousness creates scripts. Anything you declare too early can be performed back to you. And the man doesn't realize it until months later when something feels off. But he can't explain why. That's not because she was evil. It's because structure never existed. In the next segments, we're gonna get very specific. Which apps reward restraint? How to pace messaging? When video chat actually matters? Why money timing is everything? And how to spot sincerity without interrogating or becoming cynical. But before we get tactical, you need to understand one thing. Online dating success in the Philippines is not about being impressive. It's about being unrushed. The men who win here don't feel in a hurry. They let behavior repeat. They let time apply pressure. They let patterns show themselves. And because of that, they don't have to accuse. They don't have to confront. The truth surfaces on its own. In the next segment, we're going to start with the very first decision. Which apps actually work and which ones quietly train men to fail before they even meet in person. This is where outcomes start separating. Because once you understand this foundation, everything else becomes calmer, clearer, and a lot less expensive. As you know, we wrote a 300-page best-selling Philippines travel guide last year. It has been #1 in Philippines travel, or in the top 10, for the better part of a year. Let's start talking about dating apps. The app is the first filter. Most men choose the wrong one. All right, now that we've talked about pacing, we need to talk about the very first decision that quietly shapes everything that follows: the platform. Most men treat dating apps like neutral tools. They're all basically the same. I'll just see who responds. I can figure it out as I go. That assumption is one of the most expensive mistakes men make, because dating apps are not neutral. Every app trains behavior. It trains you how to act. It trains her how to respond. And if you don't understand the incentive structure, you'll blame the outcome on the woman instead of the environment it created. Let me explain. Some apps are designed for volume. More messages, more matches, more emotional escalation. They reward availability, speed, and constant validation. Other apps are designed for friction, slower pacing, more effort, more intention. And here's the key. Older Western men do better in environments that slow things down. Not because you're slow, but because discernment needs friction to work. On high-velocity apps, speed becomes the currency. Fast replies feel like sincerity. Daily calls feel like commitment. Early affection feels like connection. But speed is the easiest thing in the world to fake. Now let's talk about incentives. On some platforms, women are rewarded for staying active. Attention, gifts, upgrades, emotional energy. Not because they're malicious, but because the system pays them for remaining available. That doesn't make her dishonest. It makes her responsive to incentives. If a platform benefits from keeping conversations going instead of moving them forward, guess what happens? Momentum replaces evaluation, and men who move carefully start feeling like they're falling behind. So they accelerate, they share more, they commit verbally, they offer reassurance, they offer help. And the platform quietly rewards that until the man realizes he's emotionally invested in someone he's never met. Sometimes it happens men never even video chatted the woman they feel emotionally invested. They start sending money. That's not a relationship. Now compare that to platforms with built-in friction. Limited messaging, paid intent, clearer profiles. These platforms don't guarantee sincerity, but they filter for effort. And effort is the first signal worth paying attention to. Here's something most men miss. Women who are serious do not enjoy endless chatting. They enjoy clarity, consistency, and calm pacing. The women who disappear when you slow things down were never aligned with you anyway. That's not rejection, that's filtration. And this is why the app matters. Some apps punish filtration. They make men feel like if they don't keep things exciting, they'll lose the match. Other apps allow men to observe without pressure, to pace without apology, to let behavior repeat. This is why I tell men, choose the environment that matches the relationship you want, not the one that feeds adrenaline. Now let's talk about something uncomfortable. Availability. On certain apps, women are trained to be always available. Immediate replies, long conversations, daily check-ins. That feels flattering, but availability is not commitment. Commitment shows up when there's less to gain, when response is slow, when expectations are unclear, when no help is being offered. This is why slowing down is not a strategy. It's a test, and the app either supports that test or sabotages it. For example, Tinder, it relies on lightning speed, swipe, there's a match. If she's getting swiped on right and left, if you don't just contact her and set the date, you're working in nanoseconds. And here in the Philippines, we've learned from experience in our consultations, that's a very, very liberated woman you're going to find on a Tinder date. Great if you don't want to meet the parents, if you don't want to get into a long-term relationship, but not the app that slows things down. Here's a simple rule. If a platform makes you feel like you need to perform, you're already off balance. The right platform allows you to remain neutral, interested but not invested, present but not chasing, because the moment you feel rushed, you stop observing. And observation is how men your age win. In the next segment, we're going to get even more specific. Messaging cadence, response timing, why good morning texts matter less than you think, and how men accidentally talk themselves out of strong outcomes. This is where restraint starts paying real dividends. Stay with me, because once you understand how platforms and pacing interact, you'll stop feeling confused and start feeling in control. Messaging is where outcomes quietly change. We're going to talk about the part most men think they already understand, messaging. This is where men say, I didn't do anything wrong. And they're usually right. They didn't do anything wrong. They just did too much. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't lose women online because of what they say. They lose them because when and how often they say it. Messaging is not about connection. It's about pacing. And pacing communicates more than any sentence ever will. Let me explain. When you match with someone, your instinct is to establish rapport. You want to show interest, warmth, seriousness. So you reply quickly, you ask questions, you keep the conversation alive. That feels polite, but politeness online often reads as availability. And availability changes the power balance. Here's the first mistake: immediate responsiveness. If you reply instantly every time, you teach the other person that your attention is abundant. That doesn't feel special, it feels predictable. Attraction requires a small amount of uncertainty. It's about not collapsing your schedule around someone you haven't met. Here's the second mistake now: over-explaining. Men lose clarity. They explain intentions, boundaries, values. You know, Chrissy and I have a video, the first date mistake. Every woman will ask you, what happened to your wife? Why did you get divorced? Where did your last relationship go wrong? You know, for the sake of my soul, I had to move on. I've learned that children deserve two happy parents more than they deserve two married parents. Now, how about the weather there in the Philippines? They think that this creates safety, too much information. No. Online, it creates a script. Anything you explain too early can be mirrored back to you. Sincerity is not proven by words. It's proven by behavior over time. Let behavior do the talking. Here's the third mistake now: too much emotional availability. Men confuse warmth with emotional access. You can be kind without being exposed. You can be interested without being invested. When men share loneliness, divorce pain, disappointment too early, it shifts the dynamic. You're no longer two adults exploring a connection. You're asking for reassurance. And reassurance kills attraction. Not because she's cruel, but because it creates pressure. Now let's talk about something subtle: consistency. Men think consistency means daily messages. It doesn't. Consistency means predictable presence. Same tone, same pace, same boundaries. If your energy spikes and crashes, if you flood and retreat, that signals instability. Stability is seductive, especially to women who live with uncertainty. Here's a simple rule. If you're unsure what to send, send less. Silence doesn't kill interest. Erratic energy does. Another mistake men make, trying to be entertaining. They feel pressure to keep things exciting. You're not there to perform. You're there to observe. If conversation dies when you stop entertaining, that's information, not failure. Let it die. Men who succeed online are comfortable letting things fade. They don't chase momentum. They let alignment reveal itself. Now, let's talk about escalation. Men think escalation means more communication. It doesn't. Escalation means direction, moving from chatting to video to meeting. If weeks pass and nothing progresses, that's not patience. And here I have to interject. These rules of the road are in the book, the free book. You are allowed 3 written messages. The third message is, are you available to video chat today or tomorrow sometime? That's it. We're not interested in a relationship that doesn't progress. A pen pal relationship, chatting. What in the world? It's 2026. You walk outside any place in the Philippines, within 100 meters, you can get to a peso planned Wi-Fi box. 10 pesos, you get 5 hours of unlimited Wi-Fi. If she can't present herself within 24 hours on video, stop and block. It's stagnation, and stagnation creates emotional fantasy. You want slow progress, not endless chatting, texting. This is where many men get stuck. They feel close without being connected, and closeness without reality creates vulnerability. I mean, we've had 50 different men tell us they gave tens of thousands of dollars, 2 to 100,000, and they never video chatted the woman. That's when money enters too early, when pressure feels personal. We're going to cover that next. But before we do, let me say this. Messaging should feel light. If it feels heavy, obligatory, emotionally charged, something is off. The right dynamic online feels calm, interested but not urgent, present but not consuming. If you get this right, you don't need clever lines. You don't need daily text. You don't need to prove anything. You simply allow time to do what time always does, reveal truth. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the single most dangerous moment when money enters the picture. Not because of greed, but because of timing. This is where good men accidentally undo everything. This is where outcomes become permanent. And the easiest way for you to avoid a really large mistake is to follow 2 rules we've learned from our consultation. The golden rule: never share the gold with anyone you haven't met in person. Full stop. And Chrissy and I have rule number 2. Never get on the airplane if you haven't done a full social media investigation. There is so much information available in public without violating anybody's space, without doing anything that violates any moral or ethical boundary. It's there. We have a 13-page PDF. It's in the back of the free book we mentioned, the Western Man's Guide to Dating Online in Asia and the Philippines. It's the last addendum. If you're good with social media, you've got great internet skills, do it yourself. If you're not so good, or you want to do it right, hire Chrissy, her social media investigation service. Let's keep going now. When money enters too early. All right, now we need to talk about the moment everything quietly tilts. Money. Not big money, not reckless money, the reasonable money. The help, the favor, the small assist. This is where good men get confused because they don't feel greedy. They feel responsible. They think I can help. It's not a lot of money. I do this for anyone. And that's exactly why it works. Let me say this clearly. Most men who get burned here were never reckless. They were kind. They stepped in during moments of pressure, school fees, medical issues, family problems, shortfalls, and each request felt isolated, but together they created a pattern. Here's the truth most men miss. Money does not change relationships. It reveals them, but only if timing is right. When money enters too early, it collapses ambiguity. And I am telling you now, money before meeting enters too early. It turns curiosity into expectation, and it shifts motivation, not because she's dishonest, but because incentives change. A woman doesn't have to intend harm for a dynamic to be unhealthy. She only has to adapt. Now here's where Western men get stuck. They think saying no is cruel. They think boundaries are rejection. So instead of declining calmly, they explain, they justify, they apologize. That's the mistake. Because explanation turns a boundary into a negotiation, and negotiation destroys respect. Let me give it to you in a simple framework. There are only 3 safe moments for money to enter a relationship. After trust has been tested by time, after reality has been experienced in person, after roles are clearly established. Anything before that is not support. It's speculation. And speculation always favors the other side. Men hear this and say, but she didn't ask much, or she never even asked. That's not the point. The size of the ask doesn't matter. The timing does. Early money creates early obligation, and obligations kill desire. Not because she's ungrateful, but because desire needs freedom. This is where men confuse generosity with leadership. Leadership is not rescuing. Leadership is structure. Structure says, I'm not running, but I'm not accelerating either. A calm, not yet, is far more attractive than an anxious, of course. Now let's talk about the stories. Sick relatives, broken roofs, tuition gaps. These are real. Typhoons nearby. They happen. The mistake is assuming you are the solution. You're not. You're a partner candidate. And when you step into the role of solution before you're chosen, you stop being evaluated. You become useful. Useful men are appreciated. They are not desired. And this is where bitterness begins. The man thinks, I did everything right. What he means is, I gave before structure existed. Now here's the hard part. When you stop giving, something will change. The tone, the warmth, the urgency. That change is not proof of guilt. It's proof of dependence. And dependence this early is a warning. Men who succeed here are comfortable watching that moment. They don't punish, they don't accuse, they observe, because observation tells you more than confrontation ever will. Here's the rule to remember. Money should never be the glue. It should be the support beam after the structure exists. If money is holding things together, there is no structure. In the next segment, we're going to talk about the transition point. Video meeting and when online fantasy either collapses or becomes real. This is where most men rush and where patient men quietly win. Stay with me, because if you handle this part correctly, everything up to now starts paying off. All right, now we're at the moment everything either becomes real or quietly falls apart. Video calls and meeting in person. This is where many men rush and where patient men finally get clarity. Let me say this up front. Video calls do not create trust. They reveal it. And only if they happen at the right time. Most men use video calls as reassurance. They want to confirm beauty, availability, affection, but reassurance is not verification. Here's the first mistake: treating video calls like intimacy. Long calls, late nights, daily routines, that feels close. But closeness without reality creates vulnerability. You feel bonded before anything has been tested. Video should serve one purpose: identity confirmation. Is this the same person, same energy, same demeanor? That's it. Anything beyond that belongs after you met. Now let's talk about timing. Video too early creates performance. Video too late creates fantasy. The right moment is after basic rapport, not during emotional escalation. Now, I don't want too much rapport. You can waste a lot of time texting to a woman in Asia, and one video call at a minimum after the third written message is required to verify identity, to make sure you're talking to the woman whose pictures you're looking at. It's okay if you set a schedule of 3 video calls a week. It doesn't have to be twice a day, every day. If a woman resists video entirely, avoids it, delays it endlessly, that's information. And my rule and Chrissy's rule is 24 hours. You ask her for video, she cannot appear in 24 hours, just stop and block her, because that's information you need to act on. It's not an accusation, it's information. Men who succeed here are comfortable letting information sit. They don't push, they don't argue, they note it and they act on it. Now let's talk about the transition. Meeting in person. Do not meet someone you video chatted very successfully in person without vetting their social media. It's the Philippines, #1 country in the world for social media. There's never been a Filipino went to a 5-star resort who didn't post a picture. It exists somewhere online. You wouldn't hire somebody without doing a reference check. And if you're smart, you wouldn't do the reference check yourself. Why would you do it when it comes to something this important? This is where men sabotage themselves. They arrive over-invested emotionally, financially, psychologically. They land believing they're meeting a partner. They're not. They're meeting data. And the faster you accept that, the calmer you'll be. Reality does what online never could or never can. It introduces friction. Schedules, traffic, fatigue, family obligations. This is where sincerity shows up, not in affection, in effort. Does she make time or just words? Does she integrate you or compartmentalize you? Does she show consistency or convenience? Men often confuse excitement with alignment. Excitement fades. Alignment stabilizes. This is why first meetings should be simple. Coffee, lunch, normal life. Not trips, not gifts, not pressure. If attraction needs extravagance, it won't survive reality. Another mistake men make, trying to lock things down on the first visit. Promises, labels, future talk. That creates anxiety. Let time breathe. If something is real, it doesn't need to be rushed. Now let's talk about the most important shift. From online to in person. Online, you are scarce. In person, you are visible. Some women lose interest. That's not failure, that's filtration. The men who do best expect some connections to dissolve. They don't cling, they don't chase, they stay present. Because the right woman grows calmer, not more dramatic. And as reality increases, here's a critical rule. Never make decisions that pique emotion. Not online, not on arrival, not on departure. Let the second visit matter. That's where patterns emerge. The men who win here are not the men with the strongest feelings. They're the men who let feelings settle. In the final segment, we're going to bring this together. How smart men quietly succeed online without becoming cynical, without becoming cold, without repeating expensive lessons. This is where discernment turns into confidence. Stay with me, because this last piece is what separates men who repeat patterns from men who finally build something stable. How smart men quietly win. All right, let's bring this together, because if you've stayed with me this long, you already know something important. Success with online dating in the Philippines is not about tricks. It's about sequence. Most men don't fail because they chose badly. They fail because they move out of order. They accelerate trust before time. They introduce money before structure. They seek reassurance before reality. And when things unravel, they blame themselves or the women or the country. But the real issue was never intention, it was pacing. Here's the quiet truth. Men who succeed here are not colder, they're calmer. They don't rush certainty. They allow clarity. They don't interrogate. They observe. They don't try to secure outcomes. They let outcomes reveal themselves. This mindset shift changes everything, because once you stop chasing reassurance, you regain leverage, not power over someone, power over your own decisions. That's what stability looks like, and stability is attractive. Not loud confidence, not generosity, not promises, stability. Here's what that looks like in practice. You choose platforms that slow things down. You message with rhythm, not urgency. You allow gaps without anxiety. You say no calmly without explanation. You treat video calls as verification, not intimacy. You meet in person to gather data, not lock in futures. And you never confuse intensity with alignment. That approach does something powerful. It filters for sincerity without confrontation, without accusation, without bitterness. And here's the part men don't expect. When you move this way, you don't just avoid bad outcomes, you attract better ones, because the right woman feels safer, not pressured, not tested, seen. Let me say something important. You do not need to become cynical to be discerning. You don't need to assume bad intent. You only need to respect patterns. Patterns repeat, words don't. And once you start trusting patterns more than promises, dating becomes quieter, less confusing, less expensive. This is why I tell men the goal is not to eliminate risk. The goal is to stop repeating the same risk. If you've made mistakes before, that doesn't disqualify you. It qualifies you. It means you've lived, you've loved, you've risked. Now you're just choosing to do it with awareness. And awareness is the difference between men who keep reliving the same chapter and men who finally move forward. Now, if you're finding yourself nodding along, if this feels like someone finally put words to things you've sensed but couldn't explain, that's not an accident. It means you're ready for a different process. I've put everything we've talked about today into a practical guide. No hype, no fluff, just the framework men actually need. I'm giving that book away for free through the next 30 days. And if you want my earlier book on life and travel in the Philippines, go ahead and hit the link in the description or the first pinned comment. It's available on Amazon. For this book, the foundation of this series, send an email to flymetothephilippines@gmail.com. I'll send it to you. No pressure. Read it at your own pace. And if at some point you want a second set of eyes on a situation, that's what my work is. Quiet conversations, no judgment, total privacy, just helping men avoid expensive lessons they don't need to repeat. Chrissy and I offer a big brother, little sister consulting practice. If you want a free 10-minute meet and greet, just go ahead and give us a call. We have a consultation calendar, and email us for our free book and for our Dumaguete City Guide, the 2026 Dumaguete City Guide. If you want to come to the Philippines, everybody seems to want to go to Dumaguete. Why not have a good travel guide there as well? In the next video, we're going to zoom out even further. Why some men build lasting relationships here and others never quite settle. That's not about apps. It's not about identity. And once you understand that piece, everything you've learned so far locks into place. Take your time. This isn't a race. It's a second chapter. And done right, it's a good one. Till next time, part 3 of this series coming next.